Hello, Embird users. This is Lisa WeQuilt coming to you with another Studio Next video in Embird. And I was going to discuss today some of the controls that are like in the open or save window, and even a few new things that were added to just the interface when you're on here. For one thing, before I go to the open and save window, I wanted to show you what you can do now with your mesh objects when you go into, say, params. The ones in green are a custom ESM motif that I just created. They're paisleys that I created, but the blue one is a mesh. You can see over here it's a mesh, and the rest of them are fill motifs. So let's just say that I click on params, and you know when you click on params, this is going to be covered. Well, the first thing I usually do if I have a lot on the screen and I can't seem to see this when I'm in params, the first thing I do is I make my hoop bigger. Now, I might already have it big. Let's see, options, settings, hoop. Okay, no, it's saying it's the baby lock because I just downloaded the new update. So I'll go into Genome, and mine is an M1. Okay, so, but if I do that and I'll just click done, you see it's 240 by 200. Okay, and I don't see anything now, but I'll hit Control A and Control 1 to get them into view, and you can see they're not into view. So now I'm going to center them all. So I'm going to hold Control and Alt and then C. Okay, so now I see them, and you could see that it's zoomed in at half a percentage. If I click it, it zooms 1 to 1. So if I want to see all of them, I'll hit Control 1 again. And now you can see, I thought that did happen. I got one of them down here because when I had my cursor and as I deselected this outline. So let me Control Z, sorry about that. Let me go back. Control C, Control Z to undo. Okay, there we go. I'll keep my cursor away from the object window. So I'll hit Control A. I'll just center him now because I can't remember where I was at. I'll hold, whoops, Control A. Control Alt is what I'm holding, and then hit C. So now they're centered, and they are in view. I can hit, because you could see it says 0.2. I can hit Control 1, and now they'll be on the full screen. So what I was going to say is, you can see down here that for me to get this design, if this is the one I want to go into params, for me to get this design over to the left, I'd have to use the scroll bar to scroll. But you can see there is nothing for me to scroll to get it to the left. And that's because my hoop is too small to do so in this case. So I have to go into Options, Settings, Hoop, go to Custom, and I usually make it about 500, sometimes 1,000, and I'll just, when you hit this, you just have to hit Enter once, and then click on Height, 500, hit Enter once, and then you have to click on Done. Okay, now you see that there's a scroll bar. So now I can scroll. So now, yes, that will be in view because this dividing line right here, I'll bring over a guide. When this is halfway into the flat tab, that's when you know you'll be able to see your entire design. But I want to take this design and let me hold control and group. Actually, I'm just going to group it. Groups, group 1, right click groups, group 1. And I'm going to, I'll just hit control 1 to view that as full screen. But it's not, you know, the guideline has to be right there on the flat, so this has to be made smaller. So I'm going to zoom out with my minus button, and I'll just use the scroll bar to scroll it over. And now you can kind of see, I might have my guides locked. Options, guides, unlock. You can see, okay, this is about halfway. Okay, so this will show up when I go into params. And I'll just show you what I mean. So I'll click on this, and since both the mesh and the outline are selected down here, when I hit params, they both should show up for me to edit. So I could choose either one, but I'll choose the mesh, and you can see that, yes, I can see it really well. Now, let's just click done, and let's say, what if I forgot to put it in view and it's like over here? And then I click on it and then click params, and I can't see all of it. Well, it used to be that you wouldn't be able to move the scroll bar to see it, but now you can. And it's weird because I'm not sure if you have to like click outside and click this or what, or do it a second time, because what I've noticed is sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. The other thing you can do is hold your right mouse button and then move the screen to get this over. Neither one are working, and I've always noticed that it works the second time I try it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm not sure if it just has to catch up or what, but I'm going to just say change this to 75, and now all of a sudden it works. And I just think that's interesting that you have to like do something in here for this scroll bar to work. So let me move it over again. Now I'll move this to the left just by using my right mouse button. So I'll hold down the right mouse button. I get the hand. I don't have to touch the screen. I just move my mouse over and then let go, hold it again, and move it again. I'm using a pen tablet to do this, but it should be the same with your mouse. So now it's in view. So those are the two things that we didn't have before, or maybe we did have them. I don't recall having it. I know I requested it. So, but just know that if it doesn't work, just change something in here, and I'll change this back to 100. And I'll just hit done. So now Control A, and I'll hit Control 1 just to view them all again. And you notice they're not all in view. I find that interesting because I hit Control 1. They should all come into view. So I'm not sure. For one thing, they're not centered because, of course, I'm in the larger hoop. So let me hold Control Alt and C to center them, and then hit Control 1 again. Okay, so they all came in. So I'm not exactly sure about that either. So just so you know. So now I'm going to go and save this. And I'll just save it like as a different name just so I could show you some of the things that, some of the controls in the save and open screen. So I'll do design, save as, because if you hit save, of course, it just saves it. You don't go to the window, unless, of course, it's the first time you're saving it. But since this is the second time I'm saving it, I'll hit save as. Okay. And so you can see these are my folders that I have up here. And documents, WeQuilt, these are all folders. Designs, all designs, stitch and vector, and then I have this folder ESMs as EOFs. I just throw a bunch of my ESM examples in this folder, and you can see it's over here. And let's just say, for instance, I wanted to rename this folder. Well, if you just click on this right here, not over here, but here, now you can rename it. And that's also when you get a new folder, when you create a new folder. So let's just say ESMs, I'll just put them without spaces. Oops. Rename folder. ESMs as EOFs. And then you could just, hit enter. The other thing, if you notice, if I click on it, I can mark this folder as a favorite, which means it'll be added over here. I already have 2 favorite folders listed. I can delete it from here so you don't have to go into Windows Explorer. I can add a folder under it and so on. So that's all just by clicking on this. The other thing is when it's over here, okay, just the folder, these 3 blue dots give you more options. So you can see if I'm not going to hit refresh and I'm not going to hit up, because to go up, all I have to do is click this once and it takes me up. So I'll have to go back down to find it. Okay. ESMs as EOF. So you just have to click once to open it. So it's not like Windows Explorer. I can add a new folder. You can go to your recent locations from here. There's so many things you can do from here. This right here is not add to favorite folders. It's to open one of your favorite folders, which I thought was interesting. That and if you click on clear, if you notice there's another arrow, and I can clear all of these, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to clear all my favorites. So I'll just click again and then click the 3 dots again. So this isn't adding as favorites. This is just opening them or clearing them. But above it, you could see is mark folder as favorite. And I can, so if I click this, it'll add up here. Mark folder as favorite. Now Embird as EOFs is up here. I don't have to always look for it. And the other thing is, if I want to put stitch and vectors, Lisa's as favorites, I'll just click on it up here, and it's the one that's open. Okay, stitch and vector. So again, I can click here and mark as favorite, or I can click on here and mark as favorite. And there it is there, stitch and vector. Because I go into that a lot. So anyways, so let's just say Paisley Heart to ink. Maybe I want to save it as and mesh. I'll just add the word and mesh. So I'll put this under my, where was it? Okay, it was here in the ESMs. Okay, as EOFs. So I'll put it there, even though it's already in there as a different name. And just so you know, even while I'm doing this, I can go over here and click on one of these. Let me just do Control A to select that and Control C, because, you know, I'm going to lose it if I click on one of these other files. So these are the files in this folder. If I say, click on this, and this is an old file, 2017, my goodness. But when you click on a file, it's going to show up here. So remember, we're in Save Design, so you don't want to click Save down here, because then the file that's on my screen, and I know you can't see this, but up at the very top here, it shows the file that's on my screen. But anyways, that file will be saved as this new name. So I'm just showing that you could do a lot of different things even when you're in the Save Design window. Just like before in Studio Regular, you could do that. But at any rate, I could click on this, and then there's these options here. And I could have clicked on done this with the other one too. But so these options here are just for the files, not for the actual folder. You know, copy, cut. And then this one in particular is interesting, because if you click on this with the arrow, you can rename it here and you can delete it here. So again, you can, you know, you don't have to go into Windows Explorer to delete a file. And there's backup, share, so you could share it wherever you want on social media and what have you. And I haven't used Create Archive yet, so we'll save that for another video. But that's a good way to just delete the file without having to go into Windows Explorer. And then this here is interesting because I haven't really used this. So this would be, if I selected all, I would probably be selecting all of these files in this folder. And you do. So I click it again, select, deselect all, and now nothing is selected. So I'll click on this one again. Select an extension. Well, the only choice is EOF. So if I clicked that, you know, it's already, you know, I'm in EOFs here. The ETBs, the SVG, and all of those are not showing here because we just clicked on Save Design. So if you wanted a different extension here, like an SVG, you would have had to click Export instead of Save, just so you know. And then ETB is the Embird text baseline, when, you know, you want to create your own shape for something to curve around. So that's why this is the only one showing. And then invert selection will select everything but this. So now everything is selected but that. And you could do a checkbox selection. So you could, if I click this, and this is also in Studio Next, in the object windows, you can select things just by using the checkbox instead of, you know, holding control or what have you to select things. So that's kind of nice too. And let's do deselect all. I'll just select this one again, but if I click here, it's not going to select. I always forget. Okay, so since I have checkbox selected, I have to click the box, which is fine. And then sort, I have them sorted by name, but of course you could sort them by date And if I sorted them by date, and then let me go back. So they're ascending, so the oldest ones are showing, 2017 is at the top. If I unchecked that, then it'd be descending, so now this is at the bottom. So that's nice because then you could see your newest files up here. And so, and you could sort by size as well. Let's just do design new. And I'll just click, whoops. If that happens, I'm not sure why it happens sometimes. And sometimes when a new update comes out, there are a few bugs that you have to report. So I'm not sure if I hit it again, I still might get that. Let me hit the fill. Yeah. So if that happens, you have to just X out. You can hit Control-Alt-Delete and go into your task manager. Hold Control and Alt and hit Delete. Go into your task manager. And you can see it doesn't say not responding, but I'm still going to just end the task. So I'll click on it, End Task. And then you have to click on the Embird icon either in your taskbar or on your desktop or whatever to get back to editor. So I'm going to go back into Studio Next up here with this icon. And I'll just do Design, Open Recent. Here it is here. Oh, I didn't want to open that. I was going to do something new. Sorry. I'll do Design, New. Okay, you can see my hoop is showing 100 by 100. Settings. And if you go back to your predefined hoop, this was the one I saved earlier and hit Done. And I'll just click this to go 1 to 1. And I'll just, I don't know why I'm getting that. Why I'm getting that, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to X out again. Sorry, I'm not sure. I'm going to actually close out of this and I'll close out of Embird altogether when I get back to editor or manager, depending on which one you have opened. So I have Embird opening in editor. Actually, I got to Studio Next from editor, so that's the one that shows when you close out of Studio or Studio Next. And actually, if I go into manager, I'll go into options on startup launch, since I just downloaded it. Launches manager, but I like editor to launch when I start up Embird. So I'll click that. I'm just going to X out and come back in. Okay, so here it is. It opened up in editor and I'll click on Studio Next. Okay, and I still got the 100 by 100 showing. And I'm going to just go to my hoop that I like. You could see it's not holding. So and I'm not sure why it's not holding. And Studio Next is still in beta, so anyways, I'm just going to hit Done. Okay, and I'm going to try it again. Okay, it's working this time. The first time you do a mesh, I've noticed that your params are set a little wacky. If I want this to just be 2 times, like mesh normally is 2, click on this, 2, check or enter, and click on this. And I usually make it 1.5 and then this one 2.0. Sometimes I change them both to 2.0 or 2.2 if I'm quilting in the hoop, but and I'll go to tiles Now, what's interesting is tessellation does not include roses. Roses is a black work design. So if I try to create this, it's not going to create. You're going to get some funky design. So you do want to make sure that everything is in agreement. The scale is a little wonky. So I'll just hit 100. And there's a couple other settings. I did that one. This one. On this one, I'll include contours so we don't have any funky travel stitches. I forgot that the first time. This tab, no effect. This one I did. And this is your transformation tab. So I'm good with that. And I'll just click and I'll do shape and I'll just do rounded rectangle, and I'll just draw it out. You don't have to click on this node when you click shape. You just draw it anywhere, and I'll hit enter, hold Control and Alt and center. And I already had it set at roses, so I'll just hit generate here. Now for some reason it's not going. Oh, I don't even see a progress bar down at the bottom. So let me click on params. Now let's just see if I hold the right mouse button. Again, I'm not getting anything. I'm just going to click the screen, try it, nothing. I'll do something. I'll hit enter. I'll try it now. And I'm getting the hand, but it's not moving. And why is it not moving? I just realized something. The reason it's not moving is because my hoop is too small. It can't move. If you see the bar down here, the bar is at its limit on the left. And I can't move it anymore to the left. So that tells me I have to change my hoop. Now, can we change the hoop size with this window open now? We didn't used to be able to, but let's see. Yes, we can. So I can just go into my custom hoop, set it for 500, enter ones, height, 500, enter ones, click done. Okay, it moved itself because it doesn't stay in the center when you change your hoop. It's showing, it's in view. Let me see if the other thing I can do that we couldn't do before is I can resize it. So, or not resize it, I can zoom in. So I'm hitting my plus sign on my keyboard to zoom in. And now I'll just either move the scroll bar or use my right arrow to move it around. I can even move it down. And I still don't see all of it, so I'm going to zoom out a hair with my minus sign. I'll hold my right mouse to move it. Now I can see the whole thing. So I'm just going to, I'm not going to hit apply because for some reason I'm wondering why it didn't generate stitches the first time when I just had this window closed. I'm going to just hit done and see if I can hit up generate stitches from this window. Apply is the same thing as generate stitches, but I want to make sure, I'm wondering why that didn't generate. So I'm going to hit generate down here. Yeah, it's not generating. So in that case, what I'll do is I'll go into params. That just tells me now that the first time you want this generated, you have to have this window open. So I'm going to hit apply. I've just been finding a lot of quirks and whatnot with Studio Next, and I just want you to have a better opportunity. Okay, so for some reason, it's not generating. And I don't know why. I have black work selected. Do I have to actually click on this? Because I didn't click on this and select it I just allowed it to be there when I first created the mesh object. If you recall, it said tessellation, and then it showed that. So maybe you have to actually click this and select it again for it to work. Let's see. I'll hit apply again. Okay, now I see a progress bar down here. Now it's working. So that tells me that, yeah, maybe we have to hit apply first while the params window is open. But we also have to select our sample, our category, our sample, and everything. We can't just go by what's the default. So that's something, you know, that could frustrate you like it just did me. I've never done that. I've always selected and then applied. So I've never tried to generate it with just whatever the default was, you know, when I first made my mesh object. So this is good to know. So it's going to take a few minutes because I have it at 100%. And you could see my design is going from 60 to 220. So it's pretty big. Now, I did ask for a larger scale for our blackwork designs because some of the designs I really needed to be quite large for quilting in the hoop. And Dusan did write me back, and he said that he changed the scale to go up to 2,000% instead of just 1,000%. But I think that's going to be on our next update, because I thought maybe he just changed this current update, so I re-downloaded it again, but it's still set at 1,000%. And there were a couple other things he said he changed for me. I'll have to go back into the email to see, but we won't see that till the next update. Okay, here we go. Okay, there we go. So there's my mesh at 100%. And if I went 1,000, it shouldn't take as long. When I hit apply, okay, so there it is. It's pretty big. But there are some designs, and trying to recall which was the one that I really wanted. It might have been, I don't know if it was in tessellations. I don't believe it was. I believe this was the one that I was using for freestanding lace, but I think he added it when I requested it. However, when you sew sim it, it doesn't sew out. Now you could see you have to set these or else it'll lock up your computer probably. So I'll put down, I'll use the 4 mils that John Deere uses for his freestanding lace. But he also uses, see, this is what I said it before. And, you know, all this will stay the same. So at any rate, I have it at 4 mils, and I'm not going to do any transformations or anything. Include contours, and this is on. I'll click none, and we'll just hit apply. Okay, so there it is there. But when I hit done and I go into the sew sim for it, which is right here, okay, you can see If I go even slower, okay, you can see how they aren't crossing. Like it's not stitching a line. You know, it's not stitching a whole line and then coming. They're not like crossing over each other. So I am not totally sure if this is going to hold up. You know, hold together as freestanding lace. I just don't know. Now, it is 2 layers, so sometimes you think, well, a lot of times when you go over something twice, you don't always get in the same stitch hole, so maybe that would make it stay together. I'm not sure. I told a girl on Facebook to try and please do an experiment because she was asking about freestanding lace. So, but at any rate, you could see up here there's no connections, there's no jumps or anything, and you can of course have them pause on jump here. I don't know why this pause on color is seems to be checked by default, but you can click here, pause on jump. It's not going to pause even if I go 1,000. You can see there's nothing, no little lines showing up here. So there you go. And I can pause on any connections too. So if I click that and then run it again, oh, it's at the end. Okay, so I have to click over here. I'll just slide it and then click run. So there's no connections either. You would have seen little tick marks even for the connections. And then here's these dots here. Now, this show here is going to show things on the screen. I don't believe it means it's showing it up here because your ticks will show up here, your jumps and your connections regardless. They will show. But even if I have these checked, nothing is going to show. Show jumps. There's no show connections. Show grid, I could do that. Show guides is checked. I don't have any guides on. And so on. So if I stopped it and then I did Control C, Control V, and say I made this one smaller, brought it over here, kept them the same color, and maybe changed this, you could see I've got the jump showing now. In net, the one that I liked was shapes and then kind, and I thought it was this one. No, it wasn't. Fractal, sorry. So in Fractal, I do like a lot of the designs in Fractal. Now if I hit smooth, say even for this stipple, sometimes it really doesn't smooth it out. And that's one thing that I've been really wishing for was a smoother stipple and just a stipple that looks more like quilting designs. And I did send a bunch to Doosan. We're kind of close to that. I don't know. This one didn't really cut it for me. Let's see. This one has the bones in it. You know, these look like wishbones. That one was okay. If I click this smooth and I'll put my stitches to 2.2. When I'm in the box and I put in my own, I have to hit enter twice to get out. If you click on just up here, say that, you only have to hit enter once. If you click up here and hit enter twice, you end up applying and closing the window, and you close the whole param screen. So just remember that. But I'm going to just make them both 2.2 and hit enter twice. And since it's a net, it's 2 layers. All of the mesh is 2 layers. Now, Dusan did say, that was the other thing he said, that he is working on getting a 1-layer mesh for us for quilting in the hoop so that we don't have to use our motif fills. Because your motif fills, our old motif fills, those are 1 layer and they travel on the edge. Sometimes you have to edit them and so on, as stitch points. So it is a little bit of work sometimes. However, if it's just an edge-to-edge quilt in the hoop, then usually you don't have that issue. But at any rate, I was excited for him to say that we're going to get a single line mesh. That'll be great. But I don't know when that'll be. I have created custom ESM motif fills that are for sale on my website. And you can create them here in Studio Next or in Studio Regular. Just know that if you edit them, say you created an ESM in Studio Regular, if you then edit it in Studio Mesh, you're not going to be able to open it in Studio Regular. So if you created it in Studio Regular, do not edit it in Studio Mesh. Just so you know. I learned the hard way. So I'm editing this. I'm giving it a new design. I was going to hit apply and everything, but I don't see it. So again, here's my bar down here, and I can use the bar, but let's say the bar is way over here and you don't even see it. Say your hoop is really big. Well, that's when you use the right mouse and just move it. And now I'm going to hit the plus sign to zoom in to get it big, and hit the minus sign. There we go. So now I can see it. So I hit smooth here. I'm going to hit apply. And you can see the progress bar down here is pretty small. Oh, well, my gap is 0. That could be why. So I'm going to actually hit escape, and I'll show you how to escape. That's another thing you might want to use. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So if you want to get out of here because you can't remember what you did and you see the progress bar is not moving, hit escape on your keyboard. Once you hit escape, it'll get you back to this screen. A lot of times what I did from here was I clicked on the screen. And usually that stopped this from spinning. But I noticed with this new update, it's not working. So I'm not sure. So I'm going to hit escape again. Okay. It just like deselected that, and I'll click again. And this is when I say to myself, well, maybe the escape isn't working. Maybe it's because the design was too intricate because of my params. So I'm going to go back to my task manager, Control Alt Delete, and see what it says. It doesn't say not responding. So that means that this is just going to take its good old time. Now, a lot of times what you can do is you can X out up here in the right hand corner. You may not see this in the video. If you click it, they'll ask if you want to save it. So click the S. Yes. So I'll hit yes. And here we are. Now it's going to ESMs as EOF. So that's not the folder I want to be in. I can hit Stitch and Vector folder, but This is a mesh that I'm working on, so I can hit my mesh folder here, or I also have it saved as a favorite. So I'll just click that. Okay. So now I'm in my mesh folder and stip mesh. I'll just click on there. Remember, this is the last thing I saved, so you have to make sure that you don't click save, that you change this name. Control A, I'll just hit delete. Stip smooth, because I smoothed it. And then I'll hit save. And now it takes me back to editor. I'll hit Studio Next. So I reopen Studio Next and Design, Open Recent, Stip Smooth, there it is. Now let's go back into this. I'll hit Control 1. I'm going to zoom out and I'm just going to move it over till it's halfway between this flat tab. I should be able to see it there, but I can always move it now once I go into params. And let's see what I did. Okay, it's showing the tessellation instead of the stip that I was working on. So I'm going to go back into Net, Fractal, and this is the stip that I was kind of interested in doing, but I'm going to try the one with the that looks like the bones. I'll hit smooth, and that was it. The average width for the gap here was set at 0. If you notice, when I had it on the other one, because it must have been something that I was working on at one point. Let's see. When I had it on this one, it said 4 mils when I opened it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on there, and I'll just put in 6. I'll click on the 6 and hit enter once. So 6 mils is 1/4 of an inch. That's not really a quilting design. So when I had it 0, the reason it locked up is because these lines would have been 0 apart from each other. So you do have to make sure that when you go to hit apply, that you have settings that make sense for that design, because sometimes gap means something different in different types of mesh modes. You know, you could have an actual kind of like object mesh, and then the gap means something completely different, and you can have a 0. But in this case, for fractal, you don't want it to be 0, because that stands for the gap between each of these lines. So instead of 6, I'm going to just click 12.5 and hit enter once. That's about a 1/2 inch. 12 mils, but for this small rectangle, it's not going to give me a lot. So I am going to go back to 6, just for this example. So we're going to click smooth. Instead of 4 and 4 like I had before on the freestanding lace, I'm just going to click 1.5, enter once, and 2, enter once. There'll be 2 layers because it's mesh. Include contour. I'm going to include them so I don't see any travel stitches, but sometimes you can try it without including them and see. But say I'm making a purse and I want to just have stipple on my purse as a background filler. Okay, so now I'm going to try it again, and we'll click apply. And that was quick. So you could see I clicked smooth, And that's what it looks like. I can even click 3D to see it. It looks pretty good. It's very symmetrical, but you know, it's got the bones that we do like. I would kind of like it a little more random, but that's when I can click down here. But until I click down here, I'm going to just uncheck this and see if I get a difference. And I'll click apply. And there we go. So it did work. It did smooth it out. So that's good for me to know. Prior to this, I didn't believe that it did so, but that could have been a long time ago. It could have been that I was an editor, and you know, there's just so much power to this program, and Embird keeps listening to our requests and updating it. So now I'm going to go to randomness, and I'm just going to click 25%, hit enter once, and I'll click apply and see if I get something that's a little, yeah, it kind of made these different. Not sure if I like it, but that's when you can go to transformation and you can skew things as well. Before I do that, I'm going to click on this, and I'll go 50% just to see. Okay, so now it is kind of distorting it, yet keeping it kind of smooth. I don't like it, to be honest. So I'm not crazy about the randomness, so I'll click 0, go back to apply. And now to get it to be a little irregular, I'll go to the skew. And first I'll just skew it horizontally and click apply. Okay, so that gave us a little, something a little better in my eyes that looks more organic. Let's try a vertical skew at the same 15. Okay. Not bad, actually. That's not bad. And if I skewed it back the other way, let's just see what that did. Okay, so that kind of brought me back, so I kind of erased them, basically. It's like I'm back to nothing, no skews. So that's kind of interesting. And I don't need to change the angle, to be honest. It's just a stipple. But that skew is not bad. I do see a couple of sharp edges like there, just on that one. And you know, that could be, maybe it's skewed too much. Let's see. Okay, so it's better now. I like that at 12 and 12. So now I know that I can use fractal number 12 and skew it 12 and 12 degrees, and it looks pretty organic. I really like that. I would be very happy using that for quilt and the hoop. And you know, if I increase my stitch length, you know, you have to keep this in mind when you have your width at 6 mils. If this looks good here, if I increase it, it might not look as good. You know, if I went 2 mils, 0.2 mils up, let's just see. I might not have the rounded edges. It's still okay, but I can see I've got some sharp edges. Now I probably could do this if I upped the width, you know, if I went up to say 10 or 12 and a half, you know, we'll just go to 10 and see. So yeah, it smoothed it out. So just keep that in mind. So in this case, I'll just go back down to 6, and I'll go back down to I'll just right click on these and that. So that's kind of good to know. So if you were doing a bag and you wanted it to be all stippled, that's good to know that we can use the skew in the same numbers, horizontal and vertical, and just modify your stitch length then according to your gap for stipple. And that goes for most, you know, anything in mesh. You know, you do have to gauge your stitch length according to how big the design is or the pattern. So I'll just hit Control S to save this, and I'll go Design, Save As, just to make sure I haven't missed anything in here. So this is Stip Smooth, and it looks like I have this sorted. If I click these arrows, I have it sorted still by date, and it's descending because ascending is X'd out. So then when I come into my files, I don't have to search for it, you know, the last one I made and so on. I could just see it, you know, the last one I made is here up at the top. And let's see, I have my mesh as a favorite folder, and I believe I covered most things. Now this is interesting. As I'm clicking on these 3 dots, remember that stands for the folder. The clipboard. So it's interesting that you can copy an entire folder to your clipboard. And I guess if you wanted to, you know, copy it or even move it to a completely different location, you could. Because here, paste folder from clipboard. So if I wanted to move one of these folders, I could do so. Let's just say I'm going to copy it. Copy folder to clipboard. And let's say instead of under Stip Mesh New, I wanted to put this in Backgrounds Mesh. So I'll click on Backgrounds Mesh, click the 3 dots, clipboard, and paste it. Now, can I just do Control V? What if I click in here and do Control V? No, nothing worked. So clipboard, paste from clipboard. So there it is. Now it looks like it actually, here's my backgrounds mesh, and I pasted Stip Mesh New, so it showed up over here as my new folder here. And if I decided I don't want to do that, of course, I can go and actually what I could do, I can cut it but then never paste it again, or I can, this is sharing and so on, I haven't even done that, but I could just click on it here if I want to delete it, you know, since I was just showing you that as an example, and just delete folder there, because I don't need it in 2 places, although it would be kind of nice in background mesh, but I would probably just put this file in backgrounds mesh. So let's delete the folder. Okay. So I deleted it. But yet, remember, I'm under Save Design, Stip Smooth. So I could still, and I've got Backgrounds Mesh still showing, I could still put that file in Backgrounds Mesh. Now, in Backgrounds Mesh, when I click on it, okay, I'm not seeing any other files in here. And I thought I did have other files in here, but maybe I don't. So let me put Stip Smooth in Backgrounds Mesh because I like the settings that I used for this. So I'll click Save. I really do like that. And this one though, let me hit Control 1. That was the freestanding lace. I'm going to delete it. And then for this one, I'll Control Alt C, put it in the center, Control 1, bring it into view, and Control S to save it again. But I'm going to go into Design Open. I thought for sure I had other things in back. No, I guess I don't. I was thinking there was a bug in the program, but I guess I don't have anything else in there. Now, open, you can see the file name that's showing, Spirits to Practice Quilting is showing. Well, that's because that's probably the last thing I opened, you know. So if I would click on this, whoops, I have this over here marked. I'm going to actually get rid of that because I'm not used to it. So I'll click this list mode, simple list. So now the no, that wasn't it. Select checkbox selection. So the simple mode is making them smaller. So I'll leave it as detailed. So let's see what else I could cover in here. It's just so powerful. There's so much you can do in here. This, you know, you can move these so you can make these bigger, which is kind of nice. And then you can, you know, make those smaller too. That's kind of nice. So I'm just going to hit cancel.